the adrenaline. I can tell you that when there are storms coming up the coastline, there's a huge amount of adrenaline. And yesterday, for example, I mean, you're on air at 4:30, but I got up at 1:30 in the morning, and right out of the gate, you get into work, you're making a forecast, and the storm starts, and then you're doing updates, and then you're doing web updates, everything with social media now. It's kind of like a huge, long, drawn-out adrenaline during the storm. Even when I got home yesterday after shoveling, it was like, had to check Twitter, had to check the radar, had to check. So it's definitely a rush when you're passionate about weather and then you're forecasting for southern New England, what's going to happen.
On the weather map, it gives me a cold.
Wake up and start your day with Danielle.
It's a mild start this morning.
Get the forecast.
Hour by hour through the afternoon.
Get what you need to know to get out the door.
Pockets of rain this morning.
Meteorologist Danielle Niles. Weekdays on WBZ.
Much of New England wakes up each morning with meteorologist Danielle Niles. The Weymouth native and UMass Lowell alum, a member of the class of 2006, is the voice of weather clarity mornings on WBZ television, the CBS affiliate in Boston. The weather has always been a fascination for Niles, a passion, even as a child.
I remember when I was little, we didn't have cable growing up, and some of my friends did, so I'd go over their house and they'd want to play like Nintendo or something, and I'd be like, can we turn on the Weather Channel? You know, because it was that was like the thing to watch, and they'd be like, oh, you know, I want to play games, and I'm like, can we just watch the Weather Channel today? So I always had some sort of, passion with the weather. My sister and I shared a room growing up, and we had a skylight in our room, and I remember waking up and waking her up to thunderstorms and saying, let's sit in front of the skylight and count and see how far away they are. So there's definitely always been that passion, but also that kind of question, that like little scientific mind. We vacationed in Chatham as a family growing up, and I remember like being at the house and it would be completely sunny, and then going out to the beach and it would be totally fogged in, and even as a little kid being like, why is that happening? You know, so I think I always had like a question as to why certain things happened in weather.
The study of meteorology would be one of the things that brought Danielle Niles to UMass Lowell, but not the only thing. There was another passion that captured the mind of the young Niles. A very active young girl, a self-described tomboy, Danielle Niles had a passion for soccer.
Soccer was my passion because I also played basketball and softball, and at one point I danced, I played the flute, and my mom just said, we gotta pick, I was running around like crazy as a teenager, and she said, you gotta pick what you're passionate about. And I said, well, soccer, number one. I played flute for a little while, but then I just said basketball, okay, softball. I played basketball in high school, but soccer was always the one. I just loved it. I loved being on the field. I loved the connections I made. I loved the feeling of running down the sideline. I'm left-footed, so I'd always love crossing the ball in front of the net. I mean, it's funny to see the shift. I played forward in high school, then I kind of transitioned to midfield, and then at UMass Lowell I played defense too, my senior year. So I think soccer's just been a passion since I was little.
I actually remember watching her play as a recruit at the Bay State games at UMass Boston. This little, I shouldn't say little, she was always the taller of the players out there, and very thin left-footed player with a great left foot running up and down the sideline. So yeah, I do remember her a lot.
That is former UMass Lowell women's soccer head coach Ellie Montero, the coach for whom Niles played during her 4 years at UMass Lowell.
She was, again, never too high during the good moments, never too low during the bad moments. Very composed, very mature about the way she analyzed, again, her position on the field the year before, and what her teammates' roles were around her, and we were starting to experience a little bit of success during her career at Lowell, and again, it never was something where she was allowing herself to enjoy it too much to hamper her own growth and development.
I really wanted to play soccer in college, but at the time I didn't know if it would happen. And that, I wouldn't say took a backseat to the weather, but I wanted to go to school for meteorology. I knew that. And if I could play soccer too, that would be ideal. So yeah, it was the perfect storm. I applied to other meteorology schools that I wouldn't have been able to play soccer at, and I think that did play a huge role in my decision to go to UMass Lowell.
Niles earned her undergraduate degree at UMass Lowell and then a master's at Florida State. Her first job in the weather business was at Weather Services International in Andover, and then television. 5 years at New England Cable News and then on to WBZ in Boston. But television had not been part of the plan, and Niles at times seems almost surprised that she is on TV.
Looking back, I can't say that like back in the day I thought, you know what, I'm going to be on TV someday. It was more that would be cool. But I almost just, I wanted to be a meteorologist. So now that I'm on TV, it's still kind of weird. Like when I see myself on TV or I see web videos, and I think that's just a part of me that it'll never feel like completely comfortable watching myself on TV. I don't think I look at myself as a TV meteorologist. I think when it comes, because some people on TV aren't meteorologists, even though they get that title. I think, my UMass Lowell roots, my scientific roots, I look at myself as a meteorologist in terms of my career and a scientist.
You notice that word, scientist. When Danielle Niles and I spoke, she used that word often. It carries significance. It's not just about giving the forecast on television.
I think especially as a woman in the meteorology field, I mean, obviously made huge strides in the past 5, 10, 20 years. But that is a very important part of it for me. What did I go to school for 6 years? To study meteorology. I didn't do, fluff courses. I studied the math and science, and I think that's huge at UMass Lowell. They build that base of math and science to work off of, and then once you get in the real world, you get that operational forecasting side. But the science side is huge for me because I feel like both men and women, some meteorologists don't have that background. So that I'm very proud of that. It's a fine line. Do you know what I mean by that? It's that there's a fine line between being able to communicate the science, but also look good for TV. Let's be honest, and wear certain things. And there's never been anyone that said you have to wear this or you have to wear that. But I think there's an expectation for TV. Of course, you got to do your hair and makeup. We don't have people that do that for us, so I had to learn all that stuff. But I think in terms of credibility, there's a fine line. It's difficult. I want to be, looked at as a credible meteorologist, and I think sometimes it's more difficult for women. Yet at the same time, it's easier right now in the market for women to be picked up by stations because that's what a lot of people are looking for.
And it was at work that Danielle Niles met the man that she would marry. Another meteorologist, Matt Noyes of New England Cable News. And yes, they do go head-to-head forecasting in the morning.
So we try not to be competitive, but he was actually on the crew team at Cornell, so he's got an athletics background too. So we're both athletes, we're both competitive. I think when it comes down to it, I'm more competitive than he is. But usually, people will ask all the time, oh, do you guys talk weather at home? And it's like, but we do it all day. So by the time we get home, sometimes after a storm, we just shovel out the driveway, spend quality time together, cook dinner, and end up going to bed, and we don't. But there are the occasional times where I'll say, what'd you go with in Boston today? What time do you think the backdoor front's going to come in? And so we'll have fun with it too and make little bets sometimes.
Danielle Niles, meteorologist, former captain of the UMass Lowell women's soccer team, says she remains in touch with her former teammates, still describes herself as competitive, but a moment later says that she is more laid back now than she once was, and notes that it was UMass Lowell that built the foundation for her career.
What pivotal years, college education, playing soccer, I think it helped shape who I am today. And I think a lot of and you kind of touched on it, a lot of the same things that I do on a daily basis in terms of working with a team and kind of getting your head in the game and being competitive, but working hard, a lot of that stuff was learned at UMass Lowell.